Preliminary results in Romania's presidential election show nationalist candidate George Simeon has won the first round of votes, setting the stage for a runoff thriller.
U.S. President Donald Trump said he wants to place 100% tariffs on foreign-made films and reopen the notorious Alcatraz prison.
The UN warns Palestinian journalists in the Gaza Strip are working under unprecedented levels of danger amid ongoing restrictions on press freedom.
The hard-right nationalist candidate George Simeon secured a decisive win on Sunday in the first round of Romania's presidential election. Far behind in second place is Bucharest Mayor Nicu Sordan, who will face Simeon in the runoff. Dan is an independent candidate who unexpectedly surpassed the coalition candidate Crin Antonescu.
Astăzi, poporul român a votat. Astăzi, poporul român a vorbit. Este timpul să fie auzit. În ciuda obstacolelor, în ciuda manipulărilor, în ciuda unei prese plătite să ne înjosească zi de zi, românii s-au ridicat.
The vote took place for a second time after Romania's top court annulled the previous election following allegations of electoral violations and Russian interference. Far-right outsider Călin Georgescu, who topped that round, is under investigation and was barred from the rerun. Romania now faces a tough battle in the second round in 2 weeks, where it will have to choose between an inward nationalist candidate and a pro-EU and pro-NATO one. U.S. President Donald Trump is now targeting films made abroad in the latest expansion of his ongoing tariff war. He has threatened 100% tariffs on international productions, accusing other countries of destroying Hollywood's film industry.
Hollywood is being destroyed. Now, you have an incompetent, grossly incompetent governor that allowed that to happen. So I'm not just blaming other nations, but other nations, a lot of them, have stolen our movie industry. And I'm saying, if they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, then we should have a tariff on movies that come in.
Trump also announced that he wants to reopen the notorious and long-shuttered Alcatraz prison, suggesting illegal immigrants could be detained there without trial.
And I guess because the judges, so many of these radicalized judges, they want to have trials for every single, think of it, every single person that's in our country illegally, that came in illegally, that would mean millions of trials, and it's just so ridiculous what's happening. And it's long been a symbol, Alcatraz, of whatever it is. I mean, you know, it's a sad symbol, but it's a symbol of law and order.
Bringing Alcatraz up to modern-day standards would likely be an expensive and challenging endeavor. It was shut more than 60 years ago due to crumbling infrastructure and high maintenance costs.
Experts in marine salvage on Sunday began operations to retrieve the British-flagged superyacht Bayesian from the seabed off the coast of Sicily, where it sank last summer. British tech magnate Mike Lynch, his daughter Hannah, and 5 others were killed in the tragedy. The Italian Coast Guard confirmed its officers are supervising operations and patrolling the security perimeter created to ensure the safety of personnel working on the recovery.
Quindi con l'impiego di operatori subacquei e robot teleguidati ROV si effettueranno tutte le operazioni per circa una settimana propedeutiche al sollevamento di preparazione dell'imbarcazione.
The Bayesian, a 473,000-kilogram maxi yacht, sank after only 16 minutes and shortly before dawn on August 19 last year. 7 passengers died and 15 survived after the luxury yacht capsized.
Russia launched an attack with 165 drones over Ukraine from Saturday into Sunday, according to Ukraine's armed forces. In Kyiv, fires broke out as a result of the attacks, leaving 11 people injured, including 2 children, according to officials. The fires also damaged cars, homes, and other parts of the town's infrastructure. Further south, the central region of Cherkasy also suffered damage from Russian shelling. Over 100 rescues were mobilized to the affected zones as residential buildings and businesses were impacted by fires. The regions of Kharkiv, Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk were also affected by the attacks. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry released footage on Sunday claiming to show a helicopter striking Ukrainian army positions in the Kherson region.
After almost a decade, Lebanese citizens have taken to the polls to vote in local elections. These are the first since Israel and the militant group Hezbollah agreed on a ceasefire. The 14-month war between the two is likely to be a key factor in Sunday's outcome. Voting started in Beirut's battered southern suburbs, where Hezbollah headquarters are located. The polls for mayors and municipal councils are a barometer of how much the war has impacted support for politicians and parties. Hezbollah and fellow Shiite party the Amal movement are expected to win most votes in this neighbourhood, where the group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in Israeli airstrikes last year. Voters said they were especially concerned with rebuilding their homes and livelihoods. Four people have been injured after a missile fired from Yemen was launched at Israel's main airport on Sunday. Houthi rebels have claimed responsibility for the attack. It was not immediately clear whether the projectile, which landed in a field near the Ben Gurion International Airport, was the missile or an interceptor from Israel's air defense systems. It left a deep crater in the ground. As a result of the incident, flights were briefly halted. The Iranian-backed Houthi rebels have been striking Israel throughout the war in Gaza in solidarity with Palestinians. The missiles are normally intercepted. Israel's defense minister has vowed vengeance for the strike.
At least 82 journalists lost their lives in the course of their work last year, the United Nations said, as the world marked Press Freedom Day. The figure showed a 10% increase compared to 2023 and a sharp difference with the 124 reported deaths released earlier this year by the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ. According to the CPJ, nearly two-thirds of the murdered journalists and media workers were Palestinians covering the Gaza conflict.
الفلسطيني يعمل من الشارع، يعمل في الطرقات، يعمل في أي مكان حتى يوصل الصورة ويتحدى ويكافح من أجل أن ينقل واقع الأحداث وتطورات وجرائم الاحتلال.
اليوم جئنا هنا في الشارع نعمل في هذا المكان فقط لنوصل رسالتنا إلى العالم أجمع ونوصل رسالة هذا الشعب المكلوم إلى العالم أجمع بأن هذا الشعب يباد.
Local sources report that repeated Israeli airstrikes have destroyed the vast majority of press offices in Gaza, forcing media workers to operate from the streets or any location where commercial internet access is available. According to the CPJ, the number of conflicts globally has doubled in the past 5 years, which is reflected in the high number of deaths of journalists in many nations, including Sudan, Pakistan, and Myanmar.
The European press is suffocating. While the continent remains the leading region in the World Press Freedom Index published on Friday by Reporters Without Borders, the situation is deteriorating. Economic difficulties are threatening editorial offices, especially independent ones. The media are facing both the end of American aid and the strengthening of Russian propaganda. Norway, Estonia, and the Netherlands dominate this ranking. Conversely, Greece, Serbia, and Kosovo are the continent's lowest ranked countries. Within the European Union, Athens comes last.
In Greece, press freedom is really suffocated by impunity of crimes committed against journalists. Here I'm talking about the assassination of journalist Georgios Karavas in 2021. There has been one trial so far, and the accused
have been acquitted. There was also the biggest surveillance of journalists in the EU, in Greece. More than 10 media professionals were targeted with the spyware Predator, which gave the name to the now famous affair, Predator Gate.
Hungary, singled out for its attacks on the rule of law, ranks higher than Greece. But it owes this to the fact that no journalist has been killed, explains Reporters Without Borders. The organization points out that the Hungarian Prime Minister uses other means to control information. Some 80% of editorial offices are controlled by people close to Viktor Orban. While Europe remains the safest zone for the media, Reporters Without Borders stresses that the Union must remain vigilant.
Press freedom has further deteriorated in Europe. What we observe at the same time is that Europe and the rest of the world are very different, and Europe remains the safest continent for journalists, despite all the problems. And one of the reasons that this gap between Europe and the other continents is wider is because of the legal indicator of press freedom. And the precise reason is the adoption last year of the European Media Freedom Act by the European Union, which is historical legislation.
The European Media Freedom Act aims to strengthen editorial independence, protect sources, ensure greater transparency of media ownership, and protect journalists from all forms of espionage. However, not all member states apply the legislation in the same way.